What up? What up? What up? Black Comic Lords is in the building one more again. And we have a special interview tonight. It's your boy Rich. I'm here with the Chief Don Daughter Paul. And we got a special treat for you guys this evening. It's Friday night. Normally you would be toasting with Paul and Mark, but he's somewhere chilling, obviously. But we do have something dope for you on tonight. So we don't want to belabor the time. Our time is short. So first, let me just ask my partner in crime, how you doing, sir? How you doing, Paul? Can you hear me?
Man, I'm excited, man. I mean, this is big. This is big. Look, one of the things we talk about on Black Comic Lords all the time, particularly for the old heads, you know, the Generation X's like me and Rich, is how great 90s comics were, particularly for Black folk, right?
Yes.
We had our Milestone, our Anias. I mean, I even have posters of these companies behind me at all times, because for me that was the peak of Black comics. 90s was a special time. What are you talking? Hip hop, R&B, Black sitcoms. For me, I consider 90s to be a second Renaissance, a second Harlem Renaissance, so to speak, for Black culture. And in the comic book realm, the one comic that sort of kicked off that 90s blow up of Black independent comics in particular, was Brotherman. So this is a special book.
Yes.
A really special book. It's the one that's recognized by the Smithsonian. So I'm really excited about having these brothers on.
Absolutely. So let me just go ahead and give you some bio information. Dawud Anyabwile is an Emmy award-winning animation director and illustrator whose career spans animation, fine arts, comics, and music. His passion for visual storytelling began in childhood and was shaped by a blend of influences from graffiti to soul music to classical scores and cinema. He started as an airbrush artist during the rise of hip-hop before transitioning into comics and animation. Dawud contributed to the Pink Panther CD-ROM games in New York and later worked as a character designer on Nickelodeon's The Wild Thornberrys and Rugrats in Los Angeles. After moving to Atlanta, he joined Turner Studios, contributing to projects for TBS, Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, and Turner Sports. His illustration work includes Monster, The Crossover, Booked, Victory, Stand, and Bad Boy. Dawud made his animation directorial debut with Iyanu, Child of Wonder, now the #1 kids show on Cartoon Network, Max, and Showmax. Africa. He's currently directing a new animated series set to air in 2025. His brother, Guy A. Sims, is an American author known for Brotherman series, Dictator of Discipline, a series of comic books, and the first Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer at the Free Library of Philadelphia. He is a frequent collaborator with his brother, the illustrator Dawud, and in 2015, he adopted the Walter Dean Myers book Monster into a graphic novel in which Anyabwile illustrated. In 2017, the brothers worked together with Emory University to create the Big City Map Project, which created a virtual reality world for the text of the Brotherman series. The Brotherman comics and related memorabilia are archived right now at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. In other words, these are some bad men who put together a bad comic book. It is amazing. I love it. It is fantastic. We are going to have a dope interview with these guys. And before we bring them on screen, we want to run a real quick video clip just to give you a tidbit of what we in store for.
That's your cue, Mr. Producer. We are being janky.
There we go. All right.
Without
So,
further ado,
Right. My camera straight. Okay.
Guy and Dawud, welcome to Black Comic Lords. Thank you guys for joining us. We want to shout you out, salute you guys for the amazing, amazing work. We're looking forward to this conversation on tonight. So, hope you got, how you guys doing? Let me just ask that first.
Doing great.
Doing great. Great.
Good. Glad to hear it. So let's jump right in. 1989, 1990. Can you guys take us through the genesis of Brotherman and Big City Comics?
You want me to start, okay?
Yeah, go ahead, you start because even in the genesis of the story, I come in second.
Yeah. Yeah, really, you know, to really go to where the comic started, I had to step back just a little bit to the early to mid 80s when I started airbrushing t-shirts at the mall in the gallery. The picture you see there, that actually is years later. That's like 1995, but it's still in the early stages of Big City Comics.
Okay.
But when we first started, my brother Jason and I, that's my other brother, we had teamed up and opened up a custom airbrush shop in East Orange, New Jersey. And that was kind of like a little hole in the wall shop in East Orange, right outside of Newark, New Jersey. And what happened was the Black Expo New York had started in 1989. And we went and checked out the Black Expo. And at the time, that was a new phenomenon to have like all these customers dealing direct with Black vendors. There's no middleman, and you could just sell your product directly to thousands and thousands and thousands of people in New York. So we said, oh man, we need to be here next year. So the idea was to have the airbrush shop, which was called Novelties, the original shop, Novelties. And we used to make like these comic book flyers and put them out in the neighborhood so kids, could get them excited about coming in the store and get their names on the shirt, get themselves on a shirt. And we said, hey, why don't we do like a whole comic book? And I'll give a shout out to Reggie Byers, who did Kids of the King. He had a company called Victory Comics. He did Shuriken back in the 80s. He's one of the Jam Quacky. I knew him in the mid 80s from the Gallery Mall, because when I used to work at the gallery, I used to meet everybody down there. And Reggie came down. That was first brother outside of Dwayne Ferguson, who did Hamster Vice, who actually made comics independently. So Reggie, he's the one who kind of told me, hey, here's how you draw the book, here's how you market, and you know, get them to the Wizard guys, and the Wizard picks it up, and you know, they might make 1,000 order for like 1,500 books to get in comic shops around the country. So we're like, okay, cool, you know. And so what we did, we took that information, and because back then it was harder to make comics, not like now you have on print on demand, you can make one book at a time and all that. But when we were doing it, you had to have a print run of 10,000 books per book. Wow. When you dealt with a printer. And it was hard to find printers. There was a printer in Wheeling, West Virginia that we used. There was one in San Antonio, and I think the other ones were in Canada. And they had a web press. So it cost maybe like $2,500, but you had to get like 10,000 books, which is like 30 large boxes. So imagine we had this little shop in East Orange, New Jersey. This big yellow freight truck pulls up and loads in 30 of those big giant boxes. It took up our whole storage. So we basically shut down airbrushing and said, hey, let's just do comics full time. And we had to turn a lot of those extra boxes into like furniture at our apartment and whatnot until it, but the books were moving. I mean, once we hit the Black Expo, books took off like that. But in the process of making, before we made the book, we said, hey, let's have a comic. We were kind of come up with a comic idea. And there was a character I had in my sketchbook, and it was Brotherman. But, you know, there was no concept behind it. You know how you're a kid, you just come up, you know, with little silly things you put in your book or whatever. Right. And then we knew Guy's a writer. You know, me and Guy have always done things since we were young. So that's a no-brainer. Hey, let's see if Guy can write the book. At the time, Guy was in Newark, New Jersey. I mean, Newark, Delaware. And he came up to Jersey, and in one weekend, we brainstormed, hey, what can happen in this Brotherman comic? And Guy said, give me 2 weeks. And that's when, you know, Guy came back with a whole script. And in 3 months, we went from, let's see, I think December 1989 is when we first conceptualized it, to me drawing it, getting it to the printer, and then we released it at the Black Expo, April 7th, 1990. And the books took off like that. By the end of the year, we were like 30,000 comics in. By the second year, we were reprinting books, and we were up to like 150,000 books. By the third year, we're at 500,000 books. And all this is independent.
Yes, sir.
So there's going to be like there's a lot more to it, but I'm trying to consolidate a lot of information all at once. And then, you know, Guy could chime in if I missed anything.
So let me ask you guys this, because this is an incredible comic book. Did you guys know you guys had a hit? Well, this was going to bang like it did?
Let me share one quick thing to help people also understand the early process. As Dawud indicated, I was down in Newark, Delaware. I was working at Lincoln University at the time, and they were up there in Jersey. And this is in the day without any internet or any of that kind of electronic, tools. So after I came up, and we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We came up with the name Brotherman. I said, let me go home and develop a script. You know I certainly couldn't drive back and forth to Jersey. And I think the only tool that we kind of had was a fax machine. But after I sent the script up and Dawud started working on it, I think he like faxed 1 page of drawings, and it took forever to come out the fax machine, because you know the fax machine is just you know, and 1 page is like 20 minutes to get out. So that wasn't the move. So I never saw the book until it was completed, till I got to New York to Jacob Javits Center, and that's the first time I saw the book in its completion. I mean, we talked on the phone, but most of it was just on the phone. Hey, what's this on this page? And so we worked it out that way. I mean, in today's time, like we're doing right now, I could post it up on a Google Doc, or you know, in the Zoom feature, you can put the document up, and then we can work on it in real time. But that was the process. So when you say, do we think we had a hit? I didn't even know what we had. All I knew, I had an idea, and I was working with my brothers, and that was the fun part, because now we are living apart. So this was just another way for us to work together.
Let's talk about that idea itself, like the book itself. One of the main characters, the obvious one, is Antonio Valor. Mm-hmm. But I think the main character that doesn't get enough shine is the one that your company's named after, Big City. Is Big City an allegory for something else? Because this is a character in and of itself. Can you guys talk about that?
Yeah, Big City was always a metaphor of it's like any place. We call it USA, but it was kind of like a acronym for unlimited social apathy. It wasn't United States of America. And because when we first started the book, everything was abstract, because we knew it was we wanted something that was more timeless, not timely. Mm-hmm. So we stayed away from current events. We don't deal with modern day politics, modern day celebrity, anything going on in the news, and then write a comic about it. They have their own news, they have their own politics, their own laws, and that makes it fun, because then now it's like everything's a mystery, even down to the clothes that they wear. Everything, you can't predict anything, because it's like you're stepping into another universe. So that lent itself to the development of the city, because when we first started, Big City was just kind of like tongue in cheek. Yeah, they live in this big city, but it was kind of a derivative from other stories that I did in the 80s. And I was always into sci-fi. I was always, me and my other brother, Jason, we used to do like stop motion animation. We had model spaceships, Battlestar Galactica, the Millennium Falcon, all that stuff hanging up in our bedrooms. We used to do model rockets and all that. And so I always was into science fiction, and I always kind of saw Brotherman as more as a lean towards science fiction than what people would say a hip hop comic. And I said, yeah, it could fall in that category, but to me, it was a alternate dimension, because in science fiction, you go into other worlds, you time travel, or you jump through portals and things like that. So after with the tongue-in-cheek part, because if you look at the evolution of Brotherman, issue number 1, it was kind of more humorous and fun, because we were younger, we're just having fun and putting it out there. And then as the book started to evolve, I think it was by this, we had names of streets in the first one, but I think by the second and third book, we started coming up with neighborhoods. And then we started picturing these neighborhoods. And then we're saying, hey, if this place would dwarf New York City or Hong Kong, this place would be massive. So how we see it all in now it's kind of commonplace. Even in Star Wars, you have the city planet. We have all these mega cities and things like that, where it's kind of commonplace in games and all that. But imagine 89, 90, that's what we're conceptualizing back then. And you're trying to get people to understand that, where they're really the depth of a lot of people's image of Black comics was Black Bart Simpson,
Black Charlie Brown.
Yeah, Black Charlie Brown. And we're saying, no, this is a whole nother dimension, because people say, hey, is Minister Farrakhan in your book? Does he fight the Klan? Like, we always have to connect it to something that we know, as opposed to be introduced to something brand new like Star Wars was. So the fun part of Big City was when I created a map, which was on the back of issue number 8, the original map. The map you see here, this is the revised version in 2009, where I put the subway lines on it. But in the original map, we say, I don't think Metropolis and Gotham City even have neighborhoods. Because, we're thinking about growing up in Philly, you had Mount Airy, Germantown, North Philly, Manayunk, Chestnut Hill. All the neighborhoods are different. But usually when you think, especially like when it comes down to Black creations, when you say city, people always say, oh, it's a hood, it's the ghetto. But everybody knows a city is made up of, you do have the downtrodden, but you have areas that you can't afford to live in. You got areas that you can't even take public transportation to, because it's so off the map. And that's what Big City is. Yeah, it's an all Black universe, but it's very diverse in terms of the economic structure. People don't all think the same. They're not monolithic. And that's what made Brotherman different at the time, because most of the other things that were coming out with a black genre was coming out of that black exploitation era, or it's kind of predictable. Oh, it's jive talking, or pimping, drug selling. And in our book, nobody really there's no talk of black and white. It's really dealing with consciousness versus apathy. That was the concept from the very beginning.
It was also interesting. I love the fact that you mentioned the science fiction aspect, because for me, I think there's a bit of an Afrofuturism element to it, particularly when you talk about the foundation of Big City and how the precursor for it was a land called Camaroth. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, when as Dawud said, as the story continued to grow, and we're stretching the boundaries of Big City and the map growing, and we're identifying different places, we started to talk about its history. And so that's when I said, well, let's go back in time and talk about the founder of Big City, Lindsay Big, and where does he come from? And so he's here in this same land called, he coming from, and it was Camaroth. So he came to Camaroth, which actually tells you there's somewhere else, because he ended up here. And when you read the legend of Lindsay Big and the other founders, they kind of tell the story, but they also tell like a lot of the different values that make up the foundation of Big City and the world of which Antonio's living in. You can tell people have fallen away from a lot of those values, and Antonio is just one character trying to, in their own way, move us back to the foundation. But Camaroth, like you see on the money that's going by, those are some of the images of some of the founders of Big City, and Camaroth was that ancient city that eventually became Big City.
And one note, because I know people are reading this. This was the early. I actually uploaded the wrong files, because these were the earlier layouts when I was creating the money, and when it's clicking through, actually all these people have different names. Lindsay Big is the founder of Big City, but all the other characters like that Sage Dwar, Anadia Pith, and they all had different roles and responsibilities. So it's basically when Big City was in its greatness, because Camaroth meant freedom, is that translation for freedom, because we were creating their own language.
Right.
Like the greeting is Sabandra, so they're not African American characters, because there's no Africa and there's no America. So you're taking black people out the concept of everything being about slavery or being about the white man or being about this and being about that. We're stepping into a whole new dimension and saying, wow, who are these people? What do they do? And their hangups are totally different. So now we have to create a whole history for them, because their history is not our history. However, they have soul, they have music, just like we have hip hop. They do cut up records and things like that, but there's no Grandmaster Flash. So they have a musical history that's different than ours, and their instruments look different, but they have soul. So if you take yourself and transport yourself into another dimension, there still will be soul, but it evolves differently because the terrain is different, the history is different, right. And that's like a playground of creativity for us.
Right. I guess you could, before you go, Rich, I guess you could use the term Afrofuturism, because if you think about the definition of seeing yourself, they say future, like seeing yourself in the future, but I say we're seeing ourselves somewhere else.
Yeah, speculative fiction. It's an Afro speculative fiction of what if you had an all black planet.
Right.
I say interdimensional, and in other words, we had was hypno-mystical and retrofuturistic.
Right.
Okay. That's what's up. So, you mentioned Antonio Valor,
correct,
aka Brotherman. What was the inspiration for that character?
Well, when after I got the word to go back home and and come up with all the characters, because all we had was the Brotherman character. So I said, well, let me start with his alter ego. And so, you know, I was just thinking, I said, what's a good career for him to have that gives him that kind of flexibility? And because at that time, it was kind of like a parody on the superhero thing, but I said he needs to have that kind of job that, you know, he's not stuck at a desk all day long. He can be pretty mobile. And then, of course, his nights have to be kind of free. So I just went with the attorney that was and plus, you know, he can, like I said, he brings them to the table of justice and he serves them right there. You know, that was the fun part about it. So developing him, just, you know, develop the name, and I think the career was the right kind of career for his character.
Okay, so now go back, Derek, if you don't mind, to issue 1, and I wanted to ask you that phrase, "Everything's going to be all right." Where did that come from?
I remember when we first were working on the book, and when I finished the cover. Now, actually, I think it was before I finished the cover. We were conceptualizing the cover, and we called Guy up and said, "Yo, Guy, we're doing the cover." So Guy actually he constructed the cover over the phone. He said, "Hey," he said, "just have his eyes with the letter B on his forehead, and then put 'he's here.'" And he said, "Look, check it out. On the call underneath, put 'everything's gonna be all right.'" And it was just like, boom, that was it. Yo, that's cool. Oh, that's it right there, man. You know, and then that was it.
Okay. I mean, you know, the reason why I asked that, because when I look at that cover, Naughty by Nature had a song and they sampled Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Everything's gonna be all right, yeah.
Everything's gonna be all right. So every time I see that cover, I think about that song. Mm-hmm. So I was just curious where you guys got that from, man.
Speaking of the cover, because this is Black Comic Lords, and I know we got brothers sisters that are in the chat talking about, I need to get this book, and what's going to come up is everybody's going to want the first print, and they need to be able to tell the difference between the first, second, or third prints of this book.
Good luck with that.
I can tell you, it's easy to tell, even for those who have issue number 1. You may not have the first printing. The way you could tell the first printing is you got to look at the address. And if the address says East Orange, New Jersey, that's from the first 10,000 books. Because at the end of the year, we relocated to Irving, Texas. So we reprinted the books 9 times after that. So that's 100,000. 100,000 of issue number 1 was printed, but the other 90,000 all say Irving, Texas, but there's still issue number 1. But there was like 10 prints of it. And but if you have number 1 and it says East Orange, New Jersey, you're good to go.
We also have this question from Reefa 1.
I saw it.
Explain the subtitle "Dictator of Discipline."
Sure. You know, and you know, I think, you know, in comic book lore, you know, all your heroes have some kind of tag that comes with their name. You know, like the Flash is a Scarlet Speedster, or you know, the Man of Steel or whatnot. So, in thinking about what makes him different, and going back to the root of the word dictator is the person who is a teacher, and not the dictator as in term of like someone who's cruel and berating somebody, but this is a teacher, and discipline. Discipline isn't a negative. Discipline gives you order so that you can do the things that you're supposed to do. And so that's how those words come together.
And also adding to that, think about like your teacher, think about parents, people in your life that at the time that they're reprimanding you, or you know you're doing something wrong, you know you're out of pocket, and they're tightening you up, but you don't want to hear it. You want to have fun. You want to do something stupid with your friends, you know. But they've been around the block. They've seen things. So their role is to regulate, but they're regulating out of love for you. For it's like you're going to succeed. You got no choice but to succeed.
That's right.
That's kind of like he was the personification of that. And going back to one of the earlier questions of what was the inspiration to Brotherman, I would say that will go back to our parents, because my father was very much that type of person. Not only my father, but the men that my father brought through the house. He didn't bring through like men that were, trying to encourage us to do negative things or discouraging us in our dreams and things like that. They were all men, men of valor, or, men of wisdom, or scientists, mathematics. Like I always say, like I remember, one of my dad's friends, I'm sitting down watching cartoons, trying to eat some cereal, and solve this equation, brother. And I'm like, Ultraman, what you talking about? You know what I'm saying? But it's like, to us, it was like those people were like characters that go to the grave unknown. Like who's writing stories about them? Who's writing stories to celebrate them and putting them in mythology that lives on forever? So that's what really the mythology of Brotherman is encapsulating the types of people that we knew coming up, both positive, I would say like negative, like a bad person, but just saying on both sides of the scale, but they were characters in your life. And it's like, they need their own stories. They need their own scripts, but in a respectful way. Because we always try to be even characters that's why in Brotherman, the villains, a lot of people like the villains, because we always did the backstory on the villains to help you understand why they did the things they did. But a lot of them, they were lovable, because we could see where they went wrong and what they did was wrong. But, maybe they were wise, or the way they flip words and things like that. You liked them, but you knew they had to go down. So that was our way of kind of celebrating us through mythology.
Let me ask you guys, Dawud, you probably will, because I'm talking about the art. The character style that you chose to use for the book, for the comic book. Big cities, it's perceived to be a dark place, but the faces that are in your comic book are beautiful in that a lot of them are smiling and they're literally uplifted. They're not, it's not, even though it's a dark place, the people in big cities seem to be pretty happy. And so I wanted to just ask, was that intentional? Because when I look at Black people, we could be in some very dark spaces, whether it's the hood or, you know what I'm saying, we go through things, whatever, but we find a way to have joy and we find a way to smile. So I just wanted to ask you about that.
I mean, I love this question.
Yeah.
These are the things I like to talk about, because those things are intentional. And it's not like everybody's happy, because in the story, we do have those people who have been downtrodden and they had issues and things like that. And they're contrasted against people who, they're enjoying their life. They're enjoying the moments in time. And what me and Guy and my other brothers used to say coming up is like, how come even in like Black comedies and things like that, everything's always so extreme? It's like Good Times or the Jeffersons, there's no in between, as if we don't have a wide variety of experiences. You know what I mean? And then when it comes down to the city, because big city, it's not necessarily a dark place. It's we call it the Maxtropolitan region. Like, it's so huge, the big city, massive transit. It's just a huge place. So if you think of New York City, every place in New York City is not dark. There's places that you go and it's live, it's fun. You know what I mean? There's some places you don't want to go down there. You don't mess with it down there. But you may go to some places as dark that were perceived to be dark, and some people welcome you in their house. Hey man, what's up? And they just loving on you and stuff, and say, hey man, you gonna come back and visit? Cook food for you and stuff like that. And then your whole perspective like is blown. Dad, I thought I was gonna get beat up down here. People treat me back in this other nice neighborhood. You see what I'm saying? Then you go to a nice neighborhood and people treating you all bad or whatever. So breaking stereotypes is breaking the whole ideology that, somebody lives in a nice house, everything's good. Somebody lives down here, everything's bad. It's kind of a mashup everywhere. So even on the map of big city, we have Upper Crust County, which is kind of like the peripheral. That's kind of where the old money is. But even there's pockets of trouble and things like that. And then within the city, we have the arts district, we have the business district, we have the big city municipal station, where the politics and things like that take place. And a big city lockup, which is on the Lost Reefs, the island off the Bronze River. So it's kind of fun, we like mixing it up.
Okay. Guy, let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
How I love the biggest reason why I love Brotherman is the humor in this book. I'm easily amused, but this was a fun comic book.
Well, good.
And so I wanted to ask, how important was humor to you guys in the creation of Brotherman?
I think it's important. Well, it's important to us as people. My brothers and I, we're all very humorous. We like humorous stuff, and not just humorous stuff. We like funny stuff. We spent a lot of time going to the movies. Spent a lot of time, watching, TV and cartoons after school. We made our own home movies. We have very funny cousins from Jersey City, and just being around them, it was always a lot of fun. So it just translates into, definitely when I'm writing it, but sometimes Dawud will create a picture, and it begs for someone to say something funny or to make a reference that's kind of funny or of interest.
Okay. Now I got a one character question.
Okay.
And I because issue 1, I like the whole run, but issue 1 is definitely my favorite issue.
Mm-hmm.
What was the inspiration for Seduction?
The Seductress.
The Seductress, yes.
Issue 6.
No, she's in one.
One and two.
Yeah.
1 and 2. Well, I wanted one, and if you look at the run of the comics, she's the only character that's in a costume. And once again, this is early in our thinking, and we're saying, well, if you're going to have a super villain or a villain, I guess they have to have we're going.
Right.
We start out at the base level of I guess this is what you do to keep us going, and so one, I thought that was just a pretty good balanced character. She was a very smart character. She was a chemist, and so she was a chemist who felt wronged from the company of where she worked, which is why she created that perfume that only affected men. And so I just thought that might have been a real cool initial foil for Brotherman. But once you go into the next group of characters, you see they all get kind of regrounded. In these are people. These are the people in the neighborhood. I'll say it like that, like they say on Sesame Street.
Right. So you guys created this book, and it winds up in the Smithsonian. Talk about that. How does it feel to have a book, your baby, acknowledged by the whole culture and our people? I mean, how does that feel? And what did you initially thought about that when they put the book in?
Well, very, very excited, very proud. I mean, and you got to realize it came many, many years later. And so when Dawud brought it to my attention, you just feel like, wow, because I spent many years, just like probably everybody here, we've all gone to museums, and sometimes you don't always think about how does something get into a museum? Why is this artifact in here and why something else is not? You know what I mean?
Right.
How did you all find out about it? Did they approach you?
Yeah.
Well, actually, at the time, I had a manager named Nathan Copeland, and Nate was, he was just helping us get things going. Again, this was around 2015, 2016 when we were working on the graphic novel. And he said, man, if I can't do anything else for you guys, I'm going to help get you guys in the Smithsonian. And he's the one who basically did the legwork, reached out, made the contacts. They checked out the material. And actually, if you have some pictures here from the Brotherman art show, because we were doing Brotherman art exhibitions from the year 2009. Yeah, from 2009 to 2017, we did about 10 Brotherman art exhibitions where we exhibited like original paintings. We had giant like cutouts, like 13 cutouts. And at the time, it was like the first Black independent comic show. And at the galleries that we showed it at, from Auburn Avenue Research Library here in Atlanta to Guy Your School, Virginia Tech,
yeah.
Urban Yoga Foundation in Harlem. We moved around with the show, and in 2017, after the last show, the Smithsonian collected up a lot of the pieces. So even the piece you see there, that's the original painting I did of Big City. I did that in 1991 because I was trying to picture, like, if this was a movie, this is how I want it. It's basically my concept art. And that painting took me like a year to paint, as I was working on the book and traveling around the country all at the same time. But all that's in the Smithsonian now. It's not even in my possession anymore, and which is fine with me. And the original books, the original comics drawings are at Clark University archives.
Okay.
Anybody can go there and picture them.
Reefer want to ask, can you talk about the influence of spray can hip hop art on your style?
Yes. Yeah, and that's why I was saying, like, Brotherman actually goes back even before the 90s to the 80s, because, from high school on, I had a lot of friends who were like graffiti writers, or they were into the style and things like that. So I was heavily influenced by graffiti coming up in Philly. I knew a lot of writers, and I knew how to read the scripts and things like that. But I never really got into it full. I never went full hard, like trying to be all city and hitting up and things like that. And I think that's mainly because of my father. I knew he would have broke me up if I'd have went that direction. But I respected the craft, and I had a respected base of friends, especially when I worked at the Gallery Mall. When I was airbrushing shirts, that's when I was meeting graffiti writers from all over the city and going to New York City, where I met a lot of writers up there. I mean, I'm talking about the original heads, a lot of the guys who were in the original Subway art book, even Henry Chalfant, who did the book Subway Art. We used to go to his house, me and my friend Dave, who writes Parish. So we used to go up there and just kind of mingle with the writers and go to the graffiti art shows. I mean, Fab Five Freddy, Rocksteady Crew. I mean, during those days, I was up in the mix with all of that. Did my first graffiti hip hop album cover called Rooftop Records from Greg G from the Disco 4, and also DJ Easy Lee from the Treacherous 3. So I was kind of in the mix with some of these folks back in the day. And so when I got into the comic, I wanted to bring that attribute to the Brotherman comic as part of the character, because to me, graffiti, I even looked at graffiti, I think even from a different perspective as my friends, because I said, this art comes from another dimension. Hip hop comes from another dimension. And you know what? One of my favorite rap lyrics that opened me up was Fab Five Freddy, Change the Beat. Like, everybody knows it for like fresh, at the end, we're like, this is really fresh, and that part. But if you listen to the rap, one of the lines Fab Five Freddy says is, the hip hop world is a fantasy moving with the rhythms of reality. So when I heard that lyric, I said, yo, that's what I've always said. Hip hop is like a fantasy. It's like another world. It's another dimension. And my cousin, who did a lot of the music for Brotherman, well, actually him and his brother, And my cousin, he actually recently passed. Shout out to my cousin Chris Shug, Chris Jackson. He was also interdimensional with his thoughts. Me and him would just sit around, and he was dope. He was a dope MC, beat maker, one of the best in Jersey City. And he and I would sit around and not just make beats, but just talk about like other dimensions and UFOs. How come UFOs don't leave chemtrails? You know, they have to know how to rotate and master gravity, gravitational pull, you know. Yeah. And he would put those things like lyrics like that in his raps, which made his raps like futuristic, but they were still like grounded where the average person can get with it. And it was like street level, but it was next dimension. And I was doing the same thing with the art. And that's really what we're moving with Big City, and to crack people's heads, is to have them thinking Big City is, oh, it's going to be a ghetto comic. But then with it being fully manifested the way we wanted to do it, it was going to take people to another world like Star Wars. Like we thought Star Wars was going to be like Silent Running or 2001: A Space Odyssey. Then you go in there and it's like, oh, this is nothing like that. And Brotherman was going to be the next thing that was going to show people, oh, this is just going to be another Black Hood movie, blah, blah, blah. And then you go in there and say, well, yo, where did y'all just take us? You know, it never really fully reached that place in our creativity. But however, it's funny looking at AI, the worlds that AI create. I feel like that's what we were doing, really trying to draw it and write it back then. So people are kind of more used to seeing these interdimensional places.
You know, speaking of how you go into areas that are sort of non-expected, you guys do a superhero comic, but the superhero has no powers. You know, so you keep it grounded at that level. You also have an undercurrent of talking about Black culture. I love the fact that you have family as a big part of the story, because you have this nuclear family. He's inspired by his father in the original Brotherman series, right? His father inspires him to be active in his community, to become a lawyer, to still have those roots in his community, then take it a step further and become this vigilante. And then you transition to the precursor series of Revelation, where you see where he gets that inspiration from his father, and how his father was inspired to create that family in the first place based on his background. Can you talk about why you wish to take that angle of it?
Well, I think that's the angle. That's the angle that we knew, and so that's the well from which we drew from. And just using that example of what you just shared, that, you know, he got things from his father. I mean, I knew I liked to write, but I remember my father came home one day and he said to me, "So do you think you want to be a writer?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think I might have been like 6th grade or something like that." He said, "So if you really want to be a writer, you have to learn from the greats." And he brought me the it was the album of Richard Wright's Black Boy. And you know, he got it from the library. And he said, "You listen to this, and this is going to help you understand what it means to be a great writer." So I listened to it, and the actor Brock Peters was the narrator, and I was just mesmerized. And I said, "Dag, I got to learn how to write like Richard Wright." And then I just started reading all of Richard Wright's stuff. But that just goes to the real life experience, and I know Dawud has a similar experience. But I said that's how a person gets to where they are in the story. I've read other stories, and people they are just who they are, and there's nothing else to it. And I would say no. There's everything is a layer, and everybody's putting that next platform for the next person to stand up on.
Right. So let me ask you this. Brotherman has had a couple of volumes or iterations, namely the original run and the graphic novel Revelation. Will we see more Brotherman in the future?
Yeah, I always say that Brotherman's eternal. It's like it never ends. It's like we're doing our best with what what we could, you know, when we first started, you know, this was it was started with airbrush money. You know, we were sometimes, me and my other brother Jason, we were deciding, hey, should we pay rent or get a print run of books and just pay a late fee? I mean, that's how we started. And then even since then, you know, it's been a rough journey. I can even say in my place, it's been a rough journey. Even with all the accolades, it's been, you know, you have a lot of things in life that happen that that can affect the growth of a product, because our story wasn't straight. It wasn't straight lined. It was like there was a lot of disruptions. You know, after our parents passed, that was a disruption. You know, I went through a divorce and things like that. That was disruption. You know, we all didn't live in the same space. We weren't financed. Everything with Brotherman was really us self-financing. Like if we stop financing it ourselves, it stops. What keeps it going and said, man, I'm not letting this thing die. You know, and in the journey, I got the experience to work on animation projects, other graphic novels. I started meeting other incredible artists. Because remember, when I started, I didn't know artists other than, you know, like street artists and things like that. They were my inspiration, but I didn't know professionals in the industry until after making the book. And I didn't really start learning a lot of professional techniques until I got jobs. It's like I was getting paid to learn animation. So when you're going up against systems that have been in place for like 60, 70, 80 years, some people expect us in a short period of time to be like Marvel. Oh, how come y'all ain't got a movie out yet? I was like, yo, man, you know what it takes to put a movie out? I mean, we had over 6 major movie deals for real.
Yeah,
I mean, major movie studios, Motown, Columbia Television, Lauryn Hill. I sat down with her and Sam Jackson and but all those deals, there was different things that just, it wasn't right for it, you know, or certain things in your life weren't right at the time. But some of these things, you know, of course, I would like to see it in my lifetime, but it may also be something that manifests through my son. You know, he works on blockbuster films and things like that. So there's things he understands that I don't know, you know, and now this next generation, they have the ability to do certain things. I can't do everything myself. You lay the foundation, you lay the groundwork, you hope people understand, and you want to see it in your lifetime. But, you know, you might be that Stan Lee type where, you know, you're in your 80s and now you're seeing like the really dope on that level, like a Spider-Verse, but next level. And it's like, I finally got to see it. Oh, I'm still here. I got to see it. You know what I mean? So I don't expect everything to be here like this, because sometimes when you do, there's things that you got to do to get something right away. You got to accept. I wouldn't say, you know, of course, you're always going to like compromise things, but I'm saying compromise things to expense of your people. You know, hey, let's make the characters jive. Brotherman's too powerful. Let's dumb it down and this and that, and then we'll pay you like $500,000. And I'm like, well, you know, I just want the $500,000. Dumb them down. And then what you did, I took the $500,000 that squandered, but then for eternity, that dumbed down character is now adding to the things that our children need. They need lifting up, especially now with a lot of the things that you see a lot of the young people doing on the streets to each other. Brotherman was really about, like I said, consciousness versus apathy, waking each other up. He's here. Everything's going to be all right. That's like the father coming home, everybody cutting up. And when the father comes home, oh, no, cut all that stuff out. Everything's going to be all right. Get off there. You get off them curtains. You get out your mouth. You
know what? I got to say, you have hit us with some bars tonight. You guys you've done other things outside of Brotherman. So can we talk a little bit about some of the projects that you guys worked on, and because clearly you guys are not a one-trick pony. So just tell us what you've done since Brotherman and what you got cooking.
Okay. I guess we can start with we both worked on the Walter Dean Meyer adaptation of his book Monster. I don't know if I saw that as one of the, no, I didn't see that as one of the panels, but we just also not just finished. It's getting ready to come out in September. Walter Dean Myers' memoir, Bad Boy, and so that will be coming out pretty soon. Of course, you have pictures of the Duke Denham series, The Cold Hard Cases of Duke Denham, which is not quite a spin-off, but it takes a character from the Brotherman world, Duke Denham, who is the district attorney. It flips back in time to when he was a private detective. There you go. When he was a private detective in Big City. And this is a novelized series, but it's all early Big City. And so it makes references to a lot of things that will be coming soon in the comic books, but it's the early days. So I'll let Dawud talk about a couple of the projects. I'm gonna make sure that gets it in there.
Oh yeah. And in addition to that, I've been doing like graphic novels. I did a couple books for Kwame Alexander, the crossover book, Becoming Muhammad Ali, and also with
Victory Stand.
Hmm?
Victory Stand.
Yeah, Victory Stand with author Derek Barnes, and Victory Stand was the life of Olympic gold medalist Tommy Smith, the iconic fist in the air. So that was your opportunity to be able to do that book. Here's a compilation of some of the graphic novels I worked on, and then also do fine artwork, which is probably like the next frame, and then also. Yeah, that's
pause. I like how you just sort of matter-of-factly say, I do some fine artwork. This is incredible.
Oh, good, thanks. Yeah,
I mean, this is
back here.
Look.
Yeah, I was a fine arts major all through high school. I mean, I actually wanted to be a painter, but I also like comics. And I never put myself in a box as I'm just this. It's like I kind of live life by saying, hey, I want to paint now. And I paint. And fortunately, I said I wanted to make a comic book and I made it. My whole life wasn't comics. It's just I wanted to make a comic book. And then after that, I said, I want to do animation. And then I went to LA, and that's when I landed the project with Wild Thornberries and Rugrats. And they ended up being like #1 show on Nickelodeon at the time I was on it. And then I left LA and came to Atlanta. They ended up at Turner Studios, and for 10 years I was doing like commercials, and like a lot of commercials you see for like a lot of the Turner Sports, and I mean I did so much stuff for Cartoon Network, Adult Swim. That gave me another grounding, and then I just had my directorial debut on the cartoon Iyanu, created by Nigerian writer Royal Coupe, really good brother.
Shout out to Unique Studios.
Yes, Unique Studios and Lion Forge, and came out with Iyanu just dropped first season. We did 2 seasons, and there's also 2 movies coming as well. So that was my directorial debut. So right now it's ranking #1 on Cartoon Network, among top 10 shows on 10 children's shows on HBO Max, and ranks #1 on Showmax Africa across the continent of Africa. So for me, it's like I said, going from airbrushing at the gallery to this point, and also still, working with my brother and, doing things that are still grounded in community. I know there's still more to come. And I look at all these things as building blocks, like issue number 11, the step of Brotherman was called Stepping Stones. We're how the guy say it in issue number 10, where we are in life is not the absolute, because Leonard Valor in issue number in the Brotherman Revelation, Leonard Valor, he was kind of depressed because he felt like there was nothing left for him in his life, because all he knew was crime and just being on the street.
You got a shout out from Dennis Cowan.
Hey.
Thomas said, thank you for reaching out and tuning in.
Yes, sir.
And so, so with we have to look at our life, like a lot of people sometimes our life doesn't go the way that we plan. And, you know, we come into this world, we don't know, there's no blueprint, but where you are right now is not ultimately where you're going to be. You have to keep building, you know what I mean? So this is where we're at now. And, you know, and I like to see a lot more coming. And, you know, because we're all constantly growing.
Dennis is also a big fan of you guys, a big fan of Brotherman.
Yeah, and we're milestone fans.
Yeah, all love.
Salute.
So listen, fellas, really appreciate having you on. It's been a year since I saw you guys at Schaumburg. I've been promising to get you on.
That's cool.
I'm happy and pleased and honored that we were finally able to get you here. We have a tradition here at blackcomiclords that when you interview with us, we consider you family.
All right.
So we'd like to each of you to take a look into the camera, say your name, and say, "I am a Black Comic Lord." So let's start with you, Guy.
All right. This is Guy Sims, and I am a Black Comics Lord.
Your eyes were closed.
Your eyes were closed. Let him do it again. Let him do it again. If his brother calls him out, you know that's going to be a point that every Thanksgiving.
Hey, this is Guy Sims, and I am a Black Comics Lord.
Yeah.
All right.
Try to channel that Jesse Jackson.
I am Dawud Anyabwile, and I am a Black Comics Lord.
Hey.
That's what's up. All
Definitely
right,
appreciate you guys. Please, before you get out of here.
No. Before you get out, I gotta say this.
Go ahead.
I think one of the funniest things that I ever heard related to Brotherman, Dawud's heard this a billion times. This is that first day at Jacob Javits. And his sister comes up to us and she's looking at the books like, what is this? And we're like, it's a black comic, blah, 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 blah. She's like, I ain't never seen a black man in a suit, right? I said, what? You mean you ain't never been to a wedding or a funeral? Oh, I don't want to be here. And then she walked away. I wonder where she is today.
Well, you know what? I'm going to say this before we get out of here. You guys are trendsetters. The movement in the 90s in terms of black comics really began with you guys. You know, I can't thank you enough as a comic head myself. I adore Brotherman.
Thank you.
It stands out for a number of reasons for me. But the number one reason that book stands out for me is I cannot put that in a regular long box. It's
got from the magazine box.
So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you guys went outside the box with this book, and it is iconic for that reason. I think we get things like Tribe, just being different. You guys were being different, and you know, if you don't get your flowers, let me just say thank you. You have made me laugh out loud many a day, reading and enjoying the art. I appreciate you guys so much because we do this for fun, and to be able to sit here and talk with you guys, you got to understand, back in the 90s, I was in my mid-20s, I think. And so I was, enjoyed comic books. And to see this, and to see black men doing this, making me laugh, making me enjoy my favorite hobby, which is reading comic books, it meant everything to me. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
I
say real quick. Yeah, and I also want to say, like, during that period of time, and also now, being men and looking back, because we didn't do things that we did in a vacuum, and it's great to see Dennis Cowan tuned in, because with the contributions of Milestone, Ania, Reggie Byers, MC Squared. There's a lot of books. Numidian Force, Black Thunder, Captain Africa, Dwayne Ferguson. During that time, like, everybody was giving each other life, and we were all still trying to, figure each other out, go each other's routes. And I think looking back at it now, we understand, like, the role everybody played is what has built where we are now. You know, because when you're doing it at the time, you know, there's a lot of things you're dealing with, and it's hard to see the bigger picture. So now I look forward to seeing like the next generation, which I'm already seeing a lot of dope artists.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Great things coming up. And we just have to keep pushing it and moving forward. And also the messages that we put in our book is vital as well, because we have to understand the power of the word and the power of the visual. Like, you know, you're given a magic wand is like being given an AK. You know what I mean? So what are we going to use it for? And if the conditions of our community, do we have time to just, you know, just do whatever? Of course, we can have fun and enjoy what we do, but we also have to look in terms of like, how can we fuel the young minds to become even greater through our art?
That's what's up. So before you guys do get out of here, please tell us where we can find you on your social media, your website. You know, share that with us, please.
People want to know where they can get the prints for your art as well, Dawud.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they can go to Anyabwile. That's my last name. Anyabwile.com. ANYABWILE. And I'm constantly making new pieces, and I'll be updating because I'm just really getting back into my fine arts. So I'm going to be updating the site as it progresses. But you can get like these canvas prints printed, different sizes now. And then also online on Instagram, Dawud_Anyabwile, and BrothermanComics.com right now is temporarily down because I'm not really pushing anything with Brotherman until I get a chance to revamp a lot of things. Because there's a lot of things that's we've been doing. And yeah, so that's the main thing. But Guy, you can.
Yeah, Guy, where can
mostly you can just catch me through Facebook. Guy Sims at Facebook.
Okay.
All right.
That's what's up.
All right.
Oh,
and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, fellas. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
Hope to have you guys back. Please come back anytime you want. You want to promote something. Please. Next book you drop, let us know. Okay. Dawud, we'd like to bring you back, talk about a Yanu sometime when you have a chance as well. All right.
Just give me a call.
All right. Black Comic Lords.
Black Comic Lords. Peace.
Peace.